Hey guys, how's it going? So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different and a little bit fun. We're going to be ranking the bosses in Genshin Impact on a tier list. Just for fun, just to see my personal take on how I view the bosses in Genshin Impact. Because I mean, as Genshin Impact players, we fight these guys just about all the time. So why not just rank them to see where they fall on a list? Why not? Something different, some fun. But before we do, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps out the channel, helps get the YouTube algorithm working in our favor so we can build the channel and build a community over here. And while you're at it, hit that notification bell so you'll be informed whenever I upload any new content like this or even go live. And by subscribing to this channel, you're subscribing to more gaming content like this involving Genshin Impact, Destiny 2, Overwatch, or whatever other games catch my eye. So, without further ado, let's get to the tier list that ended up knocking everything out of order when I pulled up the presentation mode. So, let's start off with enemies that were roughly in the game when the game started. Let's look at our favorite Regispines, the Pyro and Cryo Regispine. To be fairly honest and to be fairly frank about this, these guys going weak. They're literally just test dummies. They're not that strong. Even when they're in the Spiral Abyss, they're a joke. So very weak enemies. Not that strong, not that powerful. Let's look at the hypostasis. Hypostasis. Whatever. The Animo one, it's pretty weak. It just, you beat it up. Yeah, it has maybe one or two decent attacks, but if you can just take it out in one of its vulnerable positions, do its little jumping wind mini game, it's easy. It's done. It did have one. All right, if it was the Animo hypostasis from that one boss rush event, I would maybe put it in mid, but I'm putting it in weak because we're definitely not talking about how strong it was in that one event. Same thing for the Electro. I will say the Electro, it's pretty weak too, but I'll be a little bit more fair to it. It's more of a big sponge. By sponge, I mean it's just something with a lot of health that's not completely weak. Kind of like in PvP games, like shooters, they refer to enemies that just have a lot of health, but just eat bullets, just a big bullet sponge. That's basically what just a big sponge is. I'll give it more credit. It's just a big sponge. With the Geo, it's just a big sponge. It's not like weak like this one is. Again, if we were talking about their versions in that one hypostasis event, I would give them more credit and put them in mid. But definitely in their regular iteration, they're either weak or a big sponge. So then let's get to the Oceanid. I'm leaning toward weak. I'll put it in big sponge. Reason is that it's not as terribly weak as these guys. It does have like mechanics with the little aqua hydro enemies it summons. So I'll put it in just a big sponge. Again, in that one event where they made it actually kind of strong, I would lean maybe toward mid to strong, but in its regular iteration, a big sponge. Now let's get to the bosses that came with the first iteration of Genshin Impact, and it's vanilla form. Stormterror. Very weak. If you were if you were starting the game, I can see stormterror being maybe mid if you're starting the game. But for somebody like myself who's already roughly at the end of the game, got leveled up characters, I'll give stormterror credit and just call him a big sponge. I'll say he's at least stronger than these guys. I'll put him as big sponge. So yeah, stormterror going big sponge. The wolf, I'll put him in high big sponge. I'll put him in top big sponge. Reason I'll put the wolf, the ice wolf, in top big sponge is because at least he has 2 immunities that makes him at least fairly okay. I was about to say the word challenge. That would have been a joke. Due to the fact that he has 2 immunities, you at least have to think about fighting him. But other than that, he's just a big sponge. So let's go into the enemies that came out roughly after that. Let's look at Child. I'll put Child in mid. Child in mid because if you let Child hit you, you're taking a lot of damage. You at least have to keep in mind that this dude hits hard. So I'll give Child credit and put him in mid, just because he does hit hard. But Child also has such shit defense. He cannot tank many hits at all. So we're putting Child in mid. I'll put Child in mid. He's our first mid character. Our first mid boss. So then after that, we're going to look at the cryo hypostasis. I'll put the cryo hypostasis in top of Big Sponge. It does hit hard. It does have like a unique mechanic with its what I refer to as final stand. It's a Destiny 2 term. Whenever a boss is at its last leg and it's trying to do something to recover, we refer to that as a final stand. So cryo hypostasis and final stand, it's kind of unique. Big Sponge. Let's go to Primo Geovishap. The Primo Geovishap I will put in mid. It is kind of in Big Sponge territory, but it does hit hard. You do have to keep in mind that you might need a shield unit if you're not good at dodging attacks. Also, if you let it do its big blast attack, again, if you didn't bring a big shield unit and you didn't defeat it by the time it's about to do its big blast attack, you're going to be taking a lot of damage if you don't run away. So I'll put the Primo Geovishap in mid. Okay, so next we're going to go with Azhdaha. Azhdaha, I will give him credit. He is strong. He is pretty strong. If you do have to plan out when you fight Azhdaha, because Azhdaha has a lot of attacks that do damage over time. He's got big area of effect attacks. It is possible to, I mean, this is for the regular player. If you're a regular player, you don't go too hardcore. You do have to plan out how you fight Azhdaha. If you don't bring a strong unit with you, a good shield unit, a good healer, you will kind of get wrecked by Azhdaha. But for hardcore players, it's not too much of a deal to take on Azhdaha. There's a little thought process you got to put in when you fight him. So I'll put Azhdaha in strong. With Maguu Kenki, I'll put Maguu Kenki in strong too. Reason is that Maguu Kenki does have a little bit of tactical playstyle with him, What I mean by that is maguu kenki will dash away from you, which means that if you're doing a DPS rotation where you have to plant stuff down, like let's say a Bennett buff, his ult, puts that down, and then you maybe put, let's say, Ayato's ult down, and you just start spamming ults that just stay stationary. Maguu kenki will dash out of those. And then you're left there like, well, shit. I'm not doing any more damage to him. And so then you had to carry yourself over to where he dashed to, and you're just doing mid damage to him. So you do have to kind of plan out how you battle maguu kenki. You can't just plant stuff down. You have to kind of pop abilities that carry along with you. Kind of like, let's say, Xingqiu or Yulan's ults. Also, maguu kenki does have resistances to Animo and Cryo. So you do have to also think about what you're going to be using against him. So I would say maguu kenki's kind of strong. He's not mid, but kind of strong. I would say strong. And he's not as like... He has a little bit more defense and health to him, unlike Childe. Alright, the Perpetual Mechanical Array. This, I'm just putting in Big Sponge. It has decent attacks, but you can tank those easy, especially if you have a good shield unit. He does have like a damage, like a little final stand phase where he summons his little buddies that you have to beat up. That can be a little annoying. But it's nothing too serious to work about. It's just the regular ruin, the little ruin enemies you got to take care of. Nothing big, nothing too fantastic. Just a big sponge. Next, we'll go to La Signora. I'm really debating on where I want to put her. I'm leaning towards strong, but I could put her in a worthy opponent. The reason is that she does so much. She puts in the first phase, she puts cryo everywhere. I mean, you're taking tick damage from cryo because obviously you're not going to worry about... I mean, if you're a player at my level, you're not going to try to worry too much about it, but you do have to be mindful of it. But if you're a newer player or a player that's coming up the levels, you're going to see Signora being somewhat of a challenge. Her cocoon phase is a little bit of annoying. Then when she pops into her burning, flaming moth form, that just flips everything to pyro. You're taking pyro damage over time. And she can be annoying because she's constantly teleporting. I'll put Signora in a worthy opponent. I'll give La Signora credit. She can be a worthy opponent because you do have to plan out how you fight her. You gotta plan out how you fight Signora. If you're not gonna bring a shield unit, you gotta bring a good healer unit. If you decide not to bring a healer unit, you better bring a good shield unit. You can't use Dendro unless you're really quick on the draw on putting Electro or Hydro on your Dendro. Like, let's say if we're using Traveler. Obviously, we want to use a good Dendro character, so if you're using Dendro Traveler's ult, you got to put Electro or Hydro on that fast. Because if you're in her Pyro phase, it just blew up. You just fucked it. So half the time I wouldn't recommend using Dendro against La Signora. So I would say Signora be a worthy opponent. I'll give Signora credit. Okay. The Pyro Hypostasis. I'll put the Pyro Hypostasis in mid. It is probably one of the stronger ones. And it does have this weird mechanic where you got to cool it down in order to be able to do damage to it. So it is kind of unique. You do have to keep in mind that you need to use something to cool it down like a Hydro character. I would put it in mid. It's a mid thing. I wouldn't put it in Sponge because it does have its little challenging aspects about it. The electro manifestation. I can see putting this thing in strong, but I could put it in mid too. It does have a lot of health. It does move around a lot, so it's kind of hard to put like a planting DPS phase on it. So you gotta literally plan out when you put a DPS phase on this thing, because it can easily move out of it. And then it does have a few good attacks where it just rains electro on you. One aspect, it's putting like an electrified cube. If you let it hit you, you're gonna be taking damage. It has this thing where it closes a gate on you, and then bam, you're taking a lot of damage. I'll give it strong. I'll put it in strong, but it's just barely in strong. The hydro hypostasis is a big sponge. Just a big sponge. It's not that challenging at all. It's like its brethren over here, just a big sponge. Its final stand is so easy to work around. You just need really cryo and you taking this thing out. Raiden Shogun, I'll put in a worthy opponent. She is pretty tough. She has a lot of mechanics to her. You borderline almost have to use a electro character with you. You do need, if you're not good, like I said, if you're not good at dodging, you will need a shield unit, because she hits hard. And she does a lot of combo attacks too. I'll put Raiden Shogun in a worthy opponent. In fact, just to since she totally owned La Signora, I'll put her right over La Signora. The Golden Wolflord. The Golden Wolflord does have corrosion, which is something you have to kind of be mindful of if you accidentally get hit. So if you feel like you might get hit by the Golden Wolflord, you need to bring a healer. And you will have to bring Geo with you, because he has this phase where he creates these things kind of like pillars or totems, where they only are easily broken if you use Geo. So I will put the Golden Wolflord in strong, just because he does have a unique factor of being a boss with corrosion damage, which obviously means that you have to kind of think about that. The Coral Defenders. These guys can be a little annoying because they have attacks that take away your energy, which means no ult for you. And they can be kind of tough. And they have effects also that go through shields. So I'll put them in strong. You do have to kind of be mindful, and they do have a part of their way they fight you. They like to kind of split up, and if one gets up on the wall, you got to knock the other one down off the wall. So they do have mechanics to how they fight you. They are kind of unique. They are a little bit more challenging than the rest of the crew. So I'll put them in strong. Just a big sponge. It's just a big sponge. This thing is not really challenging at all. The robot snake is, like I said, a big sponge. The mushroom chicken, I will put in mid. It can be tough. Tough as in it can hit hard. It does have unique mechanics where it summons enemies, but you can half the time beat it before it does that. Or if you just kind of get lucky and you don't get to that rotation in its attacks. I'll put the big mushroom chicken in mid. Electro Regispine is weak as fuck. It's not that strong. It's like its brethren over here. It's not that strong. The big robot dragon, the Aeon Blight Drake. It is a big sponge. It's not that powerful. It's like the perpetual mechanical ray. A big sponge. The algorithm. A big sponge.
It's just a big sponge. Even its mechanics are not that hard to work around. All you have to do to put, like, even when the algorithm goes in its invisible phase, all you have to do is put a debuff on it. Like, if you bring Zhongli with you, just plant Zhongli's shield, and you'll see the arrows go pointing down, showing that it's been debuffed, and then bam, you see it. And you don't have to just do Zhongli's shield. You can apply, like, before it goes invisible, apply any effect. Apply Dendro to it, you'll see the leaves on it. Apply Pyro to it, you will see it in flames. Apply any visible element, and before it goes invisible, and you will see it. And if you happen to be running Cryo and Electro, if you pop Cryo and Electro and pop Superconduct, again, you will see the debuff on it. This thing is so easy to work around, and its attacks are weak as hell. So, it's just a big sponge. So, this is my tier list for the boss enemies in Genshin Impact.
Just to quickly summarize, I will say La Signora and Raiden Shogun are worthy opponents. They have a lot of health. They have mechanics to their abilities and their attacks, making them enemies that you do have to at least kind of plan out how you fight them. But again, this is Genshin Impact. I mean, with a good team, you can pretty much take on any challenge. I am giving some benefit of the doubt for these enemies, because for a newer player that's coming up in the game, taking on these characters, trying to build their characters, I could see up-and-coming players having some issues or some challenges with these enemies. So, again, with that mindset put in place, like I said, I'm trying to give some of these bosses the benefit of the doubt, because for myself, like I said, as someone like myself who's got a whole roster that's mostly built, these enemies aren't too terribly challenging for me. But these two, you do have to kind of plan out how you fight them. These guys can be strong, but they're not like Raiden Shogun or La Signora. These guys do hit hard, but you can easily work around them and beat them with relative ease. These enemies are just big health pools. Their attacks are mostly middling at best, but once you kind of got the right team to work around them, they're going to be a cakewalk. They're, like I said, they're just monsters with big health pools, and these guys are just completely weak. You can beat them with no effort, borderline no effort. They're nothing. So this is, like I said, this is my tier list for the boss enemies in Genshin Impact. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you find some of these enemies more weaker than others? Would you rearrange this? Just like I said, always be respectful in the comments. I love seeing your guys' thoughts and opinions on these kind of things. So, like I said, head to the comments. Let me know what you guys think of this tier list. Hit that like and subscribe button. Helps out the channel. Helps get the YouTube algorithm working in the channel's favor, so we can build a community and build the channel over here. And hit that notification bell so you'll be informed whenever I upload new content like this or go live. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.